Lena was a 24-year-old traveler from Australia. She loved exploring strange places and taking photos for her blog. She had been to mountains, forests, and even an old prison once. But this time, she was in a small European country she had never visited before. It was quiet, full of foggy hills and long empty roads. Perfect for adventure. One morning, Lena rented a small red car and drove into the countryside. Her plan was to visit an old castle. She followed the GPS, but suddenly, the signal disappeared. The map on her phone froze. The road she was on didn't have a name. She should have turned back. But she didn't. After driving for another 15 minutes, she saw a sign on the side of the road. It was old and rusty. The letters were faded, but she could still read them. "Welcome to Graybin City." Lena had never heard of it. She checked her phone again. No signal. No internet. Still, her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She drove in. The road turned into cracked gray bricks. Weeds grew between them. Broken streetlights stood like tall ghosts. Lena passed by empty houses with broken doors. No people. No animals. Not even birds in the sky. She parked her car near what looked like a town square. A tall statue stood in the middle, an old man holding a book, but his face had been scratched off. Lena took out her camera. She took a few photos of the statue, the buildings, and the streets. When she checked the photos, she frowned. In every photo, she saw a shadow. It stood behind her. But she had been alone the whole time. She turned around quickly. No one was there. "Maybe it's just a glitch," she said to herself, trying to laugh. But then she noticed something strange. The street she came from was gone. She ran back to where her car was parked. The car was still there, but the road behind it was now a wall of trees and fog. Thick fog, like smoke, that she couldn't see through. She opened her car door, sat inside, and tried to start the engine. Nothing. The car was dead. Lena took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. She told herself it was just a weird place. Maybe the air was messing with her phone and the car. She decided to walk and look for help. But every street led her back to the square. Every time. She even made marks on the walls with a rock. Still, no matter where she turned, she came back to the statue. The sun began to set. The sky turned red, then dark purple. Then Lena heard it. Footsteps. Soft, slow, behind her. She turned. No one. But the shadow in her photos, it was real. And it was getting closer. Lena stood still in the cold town square. Her hands were shaking, and her heart was beating fast. The footsteps had stopped, but the silence felt worse. She didn't know what to do. Her car was dead. Her phone had no signal. Every street took her back to the same statue. And now, something was following her. She looked at the buildings around the square. Most of them were old, empty shops. Their windows were broken, and doors were open or missing. But one building was different. It was a house. It looked a little newer than the others. Its door was painted red. It wasn't clean, but it was the only color in the whole gray city. The windows were closed. Curtains inside moved slightly, like someone had just walked past them. Lena felt scared, but also curious. Maybe someone lived there. Maybe she could ask for help. She walked slowly toward the red door. Her boots made soft sounds on the stone ground. She knocked once. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. She waited a few seconds, then reached for the doorknob. It was cold. The door creaked open. Inside, it was dark and quiet. Dust floated in the air. The smell was old, like wet wood and something else. Something strange. It reminded her of old blood. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice sounded too loud in the quiet house. No reply. She stepped inside. The floor creaked under her feet. The house had a small hallway. On the left was a kitchen. On the right, a living room. Old furniture sat covered in white sheets. The windows were shut tight. No light came through. But then Lena noticed something on the wall. Photos. They were black and white pictures, hanging in old wooden frames. The first photo showed a family. A man, a woman, and 2 children. But their eyes were scratched out. The second photo was the same family, standing in front of the statue outside. But in this picture, there was someone else in the background, a tall, dark shape. It had no face, just a shadow standing near the youngest child. Lena stepped back. Her chest felt tight. She moved into the kitchen. The sink was full of black water. The fridge was open and empty. On the kitchen table was a piece of paper. It was yellow with age, but the words were clear. If you find this, leave the city before dark. Do not stay overnight. It watches. It waits. Suddenly, Lena heard a sound upstairs. Thump, like something heavy had fallen. She froze. Then another sound. Creak. Footsteps on the wooden floor above her. Lena didn't want to stay. She turned to leave, but the red door had closed by itself. She pulled it hard. It wouldn't open. She ran to the living room, looking for another exit. Nothing. Just the cold, dark room and the sound of footsteps slowly coming down the stairs. Step. 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 She turned and saw the staircase. Shadows moved at the top, but no one came down. Then, something dropped onto the steps. A small, old toy. A wooden doll with no face. Lena backed away, her breath short. She ran into the hallway again. This time, she found a back door in the kitchen. She pulled it. It opened. She ran outside into a small backyard. The fog was thicker now. The sky was almost black. Then she saw something written on the back wall of the house, in red paint, or maybe blood. No one leaves after sunset. Lena looked up. The sun was gone. And behind her, inside the house, she heard a voice for the first time. A whisper. It said, "You should not be here." Lena didn't stop running. After hearing the whisper from inside the house, her fear grew deeper than ever. She ran from the backyard, pushing through the thick fog that now covered the whole city. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to keep moving. She didn't know where she was going. The streets had changed. The buildings looked even older. Some had collapsed. Others were leaning, like they might fall at any second. The sky was completely dark now, but there were no stars. No moon. Just endless black above her head. She turned a corner and found herself back in the town square again. The same statue. The same red door in the distance. The same feeling that something was watching her. Lena stood still and tried to think. I have to stay calm, she whispered to herself. There has to be a way out. Then she noticed something new. One of the buildings had lights inside. A soft yellow glow came from a second-floor window of what looked like an old library. The sign above the door was broken, but she could still read the word, Public Records. Maybe someone was inside. Lena walked toward the door. She pushed it open slowly. It creaked, but it wasn't locked. The inside of the building was filled with dust and shelves. Old books, papers, and boxes were stacked everywhere. A single candle burned on a desk near the back wall, and behind the desk, someone sat. It was a girl. She looked about 16 years old. Her long black hair covered most of her face, and her clothes were old, torn, and dirty. Lena stepped closer. "Hello?" she said. The girl didn't move. Lena slowly walked around the desk to see her face. What she saw made her step back in shock. The girl's eyes were wide open, but they were pure white. No color, no pupils, just empty, glowing white. And her mouth was stitched shut. Lena covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to scream. Suddenly, the girl moved. She raised her hand and pointed to a door behind the desk. Then, she stopped moving again, like a statue. Lena didn't know what to do, but something told her to follow the silent warning. She walked to the door and opened it. Inside was a narrow staircase going down, deep underground. She took the candle from the desk and slowly walked down the stairs. The air was colder here, heavy like something was pressing on her chest. At the bottom of the stairs, she found a small room. The walls were covered in writing, words scratched into the stone, written over and over again. Don't listen to the walls. Don't speak to the mirrors. Don't believe the shadows. She is always watching. There was an old bed in the corner, a cracked mirror on the wall, and a wooden box on the floor. Lena opened the box. Inside were journals, dozens of them. She picked one up and began to read. The handwriting was messy and fast, like someone had written in panic. I came here to study the city. I thought it was just abandoned. I was wrong. The city is alive. It plays with your mind. It shows you things that are not real. Or maybe they are. I don't know anymore. There are people here. Or maybe they used to be people. Some are quiet. Some whisper. Some scream. But they're all trapped. Just like me. If you are reading this, get out. Don't look into the mirror. Don't trust the lights. Don't trust anyone. Lena looked up. The mirror on the wall was now glowing slightly. She tried not to look at it, but something pulled her attention. She glanced at the glass. Her reflection was smiling at her, but Lena was not smiling. Then the reflection moved, even though she did not. The candle in her hand flickered. The reflection spoke, but not with Lena's voice. It whispered, "You belong to her now." Suddenly, the candle went out. Darkness. Then the walls began to whisper. Hundreds of voices. Men, women, children. All saying different things at the same time. Run! She's here. Too late. She sees you. Lena covered her ears and backed away, but the room felt like it was shrinking. Then she heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy. Slow. Coming down the stairs. The whispers grew louder. Lena grabbed a journal, held it close to her chest, and ran up the stairs without looking back. She burst out of the building and into the dark streets once again. But now, the city was different. The windows of the buildings were glowing faintly, and in every window, behind the glass, stood a figure, watching her, silent, still, waiting. Lena ran until her legs hurt. She didn't look back, not at the glowing windows, not at the silent figures behind the glass. Her breath came in short gasps. Her hand shook as she held the old journal she had taken from the library basement. She turned down a narrow street and stopped beside a building that looked like a small school. It had a broken sign above the door that read, Great Bend Elementary. The city was too quiet again. No wind. No footsteps. Just Lena and the dark. She sat on the steps of the school and opened the journal again, hoping to find something that could help her escape. Most pages were filled with messy writing. Some had small drawings, maps of the town, strange symbols, faces with no eyes. One page had a list. Rules to survive Great Bend City. 1. Don't speak to the children. 2. Don't follow the music. 3. Don't go into the black house. 4. If you hear your name, run the other way. 5. Never, ever look at her face. Lena closed the journal and stood up. She had to find a way out before it got worse. But it was already too late. She looked across the street. Every window now had a face in it. They were pale, lifeless, and staring right at her. Some had missing eyes. Others had twisted smiles. They didn't move. They didn't blink. But Lena could feel them watching. She backed away slowly and turned to enter the school. The doors opened with a loud creak. Inside was a long hallway with broken lockers, scattered papers, and drawings on the walls, stick figures and red scribbles. A few old toys were lying on the floor, dusty and forgotten. The hallway was lit by a single flickering light. It made the shadows move, like they were breathing. Lena stepped carefully. Her footsteps echoed through the hall. Then she heard it. A giggle. A soft, childlike laugh. Not happy. Not playful. It was cold. Wrong. She froze. Another giggle. Closer this time. "Who's there?" she called out. No answer. She walked into one of the classrooms. The walls were covered in old posters and faded writing. The chalkboard had one sentence written again and again. "I must not look outside." There were small desks in rows. Most were broken. But in the corner, one desk was clean. A single piece of paper was on it. Lena picked it up. It said, "We see you, Lena." She dropped it. "How do they know my name?" she whispered. Then she heard footsteps behind her, small, quick, like a child running. She turned around fast. No one was there. The classroom door shut by itself. Slam. Lena ran to open it, but it wouldn't budge. Then she noticed movement at the windows. Tiny hands pressed against the glass. Dozens of them. Children's hands. And soft voices started to sing from outside. "Ring around the roses. A pocket full of posies." Lena backed away from the window, terrified. "Ashes, ashes." The last line came in whispers from behind her. "We all fall down." She turned. The classroom was filled with shadowy children. Some sat at the desks. Some stood against the walls. None of them had eyes. Just empty holes. They all turned their heads toward her at the same time. Lena screamed. She grabbed a chair and threw it at the window. The glass broke. Cold air rushed in. She climbed through the window, cutting her hand on the way out, but she didn't care. She ran again. This time into a narrow alley behind the school. The fog was thicker than ever. It wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She couldn't see more than a few steps ahead. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Music. Soft, slow piano music coming from somewhere nearby. It was sad, beautiful, haunting. Lena stopped. Her fear faded for a moment. The music made her feel calm, too calm. She took one step toward it. Then she remembered the journal. "Don't follow the music." Her eyes widened. She turned to run away from the sound, but something stood at the end of the alley. A woman. Tall, thin, wearing a long black dress that touched the ground. Her face was hidden by a black veil. She didn't move, but Lena could feel something wrong. A darkness that filled the air. The music grew louder. Lena tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then the woman took one step forward. Lena turned and ran as fast as she could. She didn't look back. She didn't stop. She didn't breathe. She ran until her legs gave out, and she collapsed in front of another building. A small church. Its doors were open, and candles were lit inside. She crawled inside and shut the doors behind her. The music stopped. The fog outside stayed still. For now, she was safe. But she knew the woman was still out there, waiting. Lena shut the heavy wooden doors of the church and leaned against them. Her whole body was shaking. She had run so far, but the image of the woman in black still filled her mind. The way she moved, the veil over her face, the cold that followed her. Inside the church, the air was different. It was warmer, calmer. Candles lit the walls with a soft golden light. The smell of old wood and melted wax filled the room. Lena stood up slowly and looked around. The church was small. There were wooden benches, a long aisle, and a dusty altar at the front. A large, broken cross hung above it. There were no people, no voices, only silence. She walked down the aisle, her footsteps echoing on the stone floor. When she reached the altar, she saw something strange. There was an old book lying open on it. The pages were yellow and worn, but the writing inside looked new, written in black ink. She leaned closer to read it. "We came to pray, but no one listened. We lit candles, but no light came." She entered the church, and the doors never opened again. One by one, we were taken. If you are reading this, do not let her in. Lena looked around, uneasy. "Do not let who in?" she whispered. She turned the page. There was a drawing, a picture of the woman in black. Her face was still hidden, even in the drawing. Around her were shadows of people on their knees. All of them were crying black tears. Suddenly Lena heard something. A knock. Soft, slow, on the church doors. Knock, knock. Her blood turned cold. She didn't move. Knock, knock. The candles flickered. Lena stepped back from the altar. She didn't speak. She didn't breathe. Then silence. She waited. No more knocking. She slowly turned toward the doors. They were still closed. She took one careful step forward. Then, bang! The doors shook violently, like something powerful had slammed into them. Lena screamed and ran behind the altar. She crouched low, heart pounding. The shaking stopped. The church became quiet again. Then she heard singing. A soft voice humming outside the church. The same sad melody from before. The same piano tune. But there was no piano. Just the voice. Lena covered her ears. "Don't listen! Don't listen!" Then something touched her shoulder. She jumped and spun around. An old man stood behind her. He was thin, pale, with a long white beard. His clothes were dusty, like he had been living in the church for years. "Quiet," he whispered. "She listens when you speak." Lena stared at him. "Who are you?" she whispered back. "My name is Thomas," he said. "I was a priest here, a long time ago." Lena's eyes widened. "Are you real?" Thomas nodded slowly. "As real as you are, but we don't have much time." He helped her stand and led her through a small door behind the altar. It opened into a tiny room with a bed, books, and jars of melted candle wax. "She can't enter this room," he said. "The walls are blessed. For now." Lena sat on the edge of the bed. "What is this place? Why is this city like this?" Thomas sat across from her. Great Bend was once full of life. Families, children, laughter. But then something came. We don't know where it came from. A curse. A spirit. A demon. We called her the Veiled Lady." Lena whispered. "Is she the one I saw?" Thomas nodded. "She wears black. She hides her face. She shows you things. Makes you hear things. You see lost people in windows. Children who never grow. Roads that twist and trap. That's all her." Lena felt sick. "Why me?" "She chooses travelers. People who won't be missed. People who think they're just passing through." Lena stood up. "How do I escape?" Thomas looked sad. "Only one person ever did. He left clues. Journals. You already found one. The journal in the library? Lena asked. Yes, Thomas said. There are more. He hid them across the city. Follow them. They may lead you to the one road she cannot block. Lena looked him in the eyes. And you? Why haven't you escaped? I've stayed to help others, he said. But most don't make it. They listen to her. They trust the wrong voice. Or they look at her face. Lena shivered. What happens if you see her face? Thomas's voice became a whisper. Then you belong to her forever. They both jumped as something hit the church door again. Bang. Bang. She's getting stronger, Thomas said. You must leave before dawn. She grows more powerful in the light. He handed Lena an old flashlight and a map. Parts of the map were torn, but she could see a red X marked near a building called the Silent Hotel. Go there next, he said. That's where the second journal is. Lena nodded, clutching the flashlight and map. Thomas led her to a secret back door in the church. Stay in the shadows. Don't speak her name. And whatever you do, don't follow her voice. Lena stepped out into the fog. The doors closed behind her. She was alone again. But now, she had a purpose and a path. She started walking toward the Silent Hotel, unaware that something was already waiting for her there. Watching. Smiling. The fog was thicker than ever. Lena held the flashlight tightly, trying to follow the torn map Thomas had given her. The red X marked a place called the Silent Hotel. That was where the next journal was hidden. That was where she might find more answers, and maybe a way out. The city around her felt frozen. No movement. No sound. Just shadows and silence. Every few steps, Lena looked behind her. She couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was following. She passed by empty stores, cracked windows, and buildings with doors that hung open like open mouths. The flashlight beam lit only a small circle ahead of her, but she didn't dare turn it off. After almost an hour of walking, she saw it. A tall building rose above the others. Broken letters hung on the front, barely readable. Silent H_T_L. The O and E had fallen off. Lena stepped closer. The front doors were open. She shined the light inside. The hotel lobby was dusty, old, and quiet. A broken chandelier hung from the ceiling. The furniture was covered in white sheets, like the hotel had been forgotten for years. A large painting of a woman in black stood on the wall behind the front desk. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The woman had no face. She turned the flashlight away quickly. She looked at the map again. A small note next to the red X read, "Third floor, room 306. Under the floor." Lena walked toward the stairs. The floor creaked with every step. The walls were peeling, and cobwebs hung in the corners. The air smelled like mold and something sour. She reached the second floor, then climbed carefully to the third. Room 301. Room 302. Room 303. Each door she passed had deep scratch marks around the handle, as if someone, or something, had tried to claw its way in. She finally reached room 306. The door was slightly open. She pushed it slowly. It let out a long, low creak. Inside, the room was just like the rest of the hotel, old, dusty, and forgotten. A broken bed. A cracked mirror. A dresser with one missing drawer. But something was strange. On the wall above the bed, written in red, were the words, "You are not alone." Lena's heart beat faster. She moved to the center of the room and knelt down. She used a broken piece of wood to pry up the floorboards, just like the note had said. There it was, a small metal box. She opened it. Inside was a leather-bound journal. The second journal. She opened it and began to read. She came again last night. The veiled lady. I heard her footsteps in the hallway, slow and heavy. I held my breath. She stopped outside this room. I thought she would come in, but she didn't. She whispered my name, but I didn't answer. The only thing keeping me safe was the mirror. She can't stand her reflection. If you see her, hold up a mirror. That's the only way to make her disappear. But only for a moment. Lena looked at the cracked mirror on the wall. It was broken, but still usable. She grabbed it and put it in her backpack. It might save her life. Suddenly, a knock on the room door. Lena froze. Knock. Knock. The same slow, soft knock from the church. She stepped back, holding the flashlight up. Knock. Knock. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Then the door creaked open. But no one was there. She stepped forward carefully, and then saw it. A trail of black footprints. They led from the door, into the hallway, and around the corner. She knew she had to leave. She ran out of the room, following the stairs back down to the second floor. But halfway down, she stopped. Someone was walking below. Slow, dragging feet. She heard the soft sound of humming. The same sad song. Lena turned and ran the other way, down the hallway of the second floor, looking for another way out. She found a small door with a sign. Laundry room. She opened it and slipped inside. It was dark, but she kept the flashlight off. She didn't want to be seen. She crouched behind an old washing machine, trying to stay quiet. Then she heard the door open. Footsteps. Coming closer. She peeked through a small crack. The woman in black stood in the doorway. Veil over her face. Black dress touching the floor. Pale hands stretched out. She didn't walk. She floated. She moved slowly into the room, turning her head side to side, searching. Lena's heart pounded. The woman passed by the washing machine, just inches from her. Then, the mirror. Lena reached slowly into her bag and pulled it out. When the woman turned toward her hiding spot, Lena held up the mirror. The woman screamed. A high, horrible scream that shook the walls. Her face was still hidden, but her reflection in the mirror showed nothing. Just a black void where a face should be. The woman vanished in a cloud of black smoke. Lena fell back, breathing hard. She had survived. For now. She waited a few minutes, then left the laundry room. The hallway was empty. The humming had stopped. She rushed down the stairs and out of the hotel. The fog had cleared a little. Lena opened the second journal again. The last page had a new map drawn on it, with a red circle around the place called the Glass Garden. Another message was written below. Final clue. The garden sees all. Go before the next moon. After that, it's too late. Lena looked up at the sky. The moon was rising. She had to hurry. Somewhere deep in the city, the veiled lady was still searching. And she was getting closer. Lena walked quickly through the empty streets. The cold fog hugged her skin like wet cloth. The second journal was safe in her backpack. So was the cracked mirror, the only thing that had saved her from the veiled lady. She followed the new map from the journal. It led her through twisted alleys and forgotten roads. The buildings grew stranger the deeper she went. Some looked melted. Others leaned to the side like they were tired. One building had no doors at all, just windows with curtains that moved even though there was no wind. Lena didn't stop. She didn't want to see what might be watching her from behind those curtains. After walking for what felt like hours, she saw it. The Glass Garden. It was behind a tall iron gate covered in vines. The sign above the gate read, "The Glass Garden, where memories grow." Lena pushed the gate open. It let out a loud groan. Inside, the ground was soft with moss. The fog was thinner here, and everything sparkled under the moonlight. The garden was strange. It was full of glass statues, men, women, children, frozen in place. Each one looked like it had been made in the middle of doing something, holding a hand, turning away, screaming. Lena walked slowly between them. She realized something horrifying. The statues looked too real. Their faces were full of emotion. Fear, sadness, confusion. One looked just like the old priest, Thomas. She shivered. "Are these real people?" she whispered. Then she saw the bench. It was the only thing not made of glass. On it was a small black notebook. The third journal. Lena grabbed it and opened to the first page. "The garden is the trap. She freezes people here. Not all at once. Slowly. First they can't move their legs. Then their arms. Then their eyes stop blinking. And last, their thoughts freeze. They become statues. Forever. If you are reading this, don't stay too long." Lena looked around. She thought she saw one of the statues move slightly. She kept reading. "There's one way out of this city, but it's hidden under the chapel at the edge of the garden. The door is locked. The key is buried with him." "Who?" Lena whispered. She turned the page. "The grave behind the angel. Dig fast. She knows you're here." Suddenly, she heard glass crack behind her. She turned. One of the statues had changed. Before, the statue was looking away. Now, its face was looking right at her, and its mouth was open. Lena backed away. Her heart was racing. She ran deeper into the garden, searching for the angel statue. She passed more and more frozen figures. Some had tears made of crystal. Others looked like they were trying to scream. Finally, she found it. A tall angel stood with its hands over its face. Behind it, a small grave covered in moss. The stone read, "He tried to run. He almost made it." No name. No date. Just that sentence. Lena dropped to her knees and started digging with her hands. The dirt was wet and cold. Her fingers bled, but she didn't stop. Every few seconds, she looked behind her. More statues were moving. Some had turned their heads. One had taken a step forward. Lena dug faster. Then, her fingers hit something. A metal box. She pulled it up and opened it. Inside was an old, rusted key. She stood and turned toward the edge of the garden. The chapel was just ahead. A small white building with stained glass windows, cracked and faded. She ran toward it. Behind her, the statues were no longer still. She could hear the sound of glass feet tapping the ground. She reached the chapel door and shoved the key into the lock. It stuck for a moment, then turned with a loud click. The door opened. She slammed it shut behind her and locked it again. Inside the chapel was dark and quiet. Dust floated in the air. The walls were covered with pictures of people, drawings, paintings, photographs. But each face had been scratched out. Lena moved down the aisle and found a trapdoor behind the altar. It was small, round, and made of wood. A symbol had been burned into it, a circle with an X in the center. She pulled it open. A ladder led down into darkness. She climbed down slowly, one step at a time, using her flashlight. At the bottom, there was a tunnel. It smelled like earth and rot. But it was the first thing that felt real. Not cursed, not twisted, just old. She followed it until it opened into a small underground room. There was a table, and on the table, a fourth journal. This one looked different. Newer. Less dusty. She opened it. Only one page had writing. "If you made it this far, there's still hope. But she knows your name now. And she has your scent. To escape, you must face her. Not run. Not hide. You must look beneath the veil. Only then will the final door open. Lena stepped back. She didn't want to face the veiled lady. She didn't want to see what was under that black veil. But deep in her heart, she knew the truth. She couldn't keep running forever. She had to finish this. She took a deep breath and climbed back up the ladder. The fog was thick again. But this time, she didn't feel lost. She knew where to go next. Back to the place it all began. Back to the center of this city. To the house where the veil first fell. And somewhere in the darkness, the lady was waiting. The wind was colder now. Lena walked through the fog, holding the fourth journal close to her chest. Her hand shook, not just from the cold, but from fear. The words from the last page echoed in her mind. You must face her. Not run. Not hide. You must look beneath the veil. She didn't want to. Every time she thought about the veiled lady, her heart felt like it would stop. The way the woman moved, how her presence filled the air with ice, and the way she knew Lena's name, it was too much. But there was no choice anymore. The path was clear. She had to go back. Back to where everything had started. The old gray house near the city center. She had passed it once, right after she first got lost. At that time, she didn't know what it was. Just an empty, broken building. Now she knew better. It was her final stop. The streets were darker in this part of the city. Streetlights no longer worked. Windows were boarded up. The fog here didn't move, it watched. She saw the house up ahead. It looked dead. Its windows were black holes. The roof was cracked. The front door was open, waiting. Lena stepped inside. The house smelled like dust, mold, and something else. Something sharp, like metal. The door creaked shut behind her. She turned on her flashlight. The beam lit up a long hallway. The wallpaper was peeling. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet. There were family photos on the walls, but each face had been burned out. Black circles where eyes and mouths should be. She moved deeper inside. The journal had said she needed to face the lady. But how? There were no instructions. No map this time. No symbols or hiding places. Just fear. She found the living room. The furniture was covered in white sheets, just like the hotel. A piano sat in the corner. It was broken. But still, it started playing. Softly, slowly. That same song she had heard before. The sad, slow lullaby. She walked toward it, hands shaking. The keys moved on their own. No one sat at the piano. The song grew louder. And then it stopped. A whisper followed. Her name. Lena! She turned. There she was. The veiled lady. Standing in the doorway. Black dress. Long arms. Veil over her face. Lena stepped back. Her mouth was dry. Her knees were weak. She wanted to run. She wanted to hide. But she didn't. She remembered the journal. Face her. Why are you doing this to me? Lena asked, her voice breaking. The lady didn't answer. She took a step closer. Lena held up the mirror, but the lady didn't move. She just kept walking. No, Lena whispered. I'm not afraid of you anymore. The lady stopped. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, cold, like wind through dead trees. They all say that, but they always look away. Lena clenched her fists. I won't, she said. I'll look. The lady tilted her head. Then come. She raised her hands to her veil. Slowly, slowly, she lifted it. Lena's heart pounded like thunder in her chest. She kept her eyes open. She looked, and what she saw was herself, but not the same. The face behind the veil was Lena. Pale, tired, eyes full of sadness and fear. Her lips moved with no sound. Her skin cracked like old glass. She looked broken and empty. Lena stepped closer. The veiled lady whispered, "I am what you leave behind. I am what becomes of the forgotten. Every lost soul becomes a shadow. And you were already halfway here." "No," Lena whispered. "That's not true." The lady reached out her hand. "Stay," she said. "Be still. No more fear. No more pain. Just silence." Lena looked into her own eyes. Then she reached into her backpack and pulled out the journals. One by one, she threw them to the floor. "This is not where I end," she said. "This is where I fight." She held the cracked mirror high. The lady screamed. Her face cracked like glass. The house shook. The photos on the wall burned away. The piano shattered. A strong wind filled the room. The lady tried to cover her face, but the veil was gone. Her body turned to ash and scattered into the air. Silence. Real silence. No fog. No cold. The house was still. Lena stood alone in the room. Her mirror was now in pieces on the ground. A small door appeared behind the fireplace. She walked to it, hands trembling. It opened to a stone path. At the end of the path was a metal gate. Through the gate, she could see light. Sunlight. Lena smiled for the first time in days. She stepped through, and the city disappeared behind her. But as she walked into the warm sun, she didn't see the tiny shadow that followed her. A small wisp of black smoke that clung to her shoe. A whisper that said, "One always gets out, but one always returns." Lena walked out of the silent city and into the light. The fog was gone. The cold air had faded. She felt the sun on her face for the first time in what felt like forever. Trees stood tall around her. Birds chirped in the distance. The grass was green. The world looked alive again. She was free. At least, that's what she told herself. But deep inside, something felt wrong. The veiled lady was gone. The journals were gone. The city had vanished behind her. Yet the air around her still felt strange. Too quiet. Lena found a road and followed it. After hours of walking, she reached a small village. The people looked normal, friendly. They gave her food and water, a place to sleep. But no one had heard of the silent city. When she asked about it, people only shook their heads. "That place doesn't exist," they said. But she knew the truth. She had been there. She had survived. Days passed. Lena stayed in the village, trying to rest, trying to forget. But every night, the same dream came back. She was standing in front of a mirror, and behind her stood the veiled lady. Not angry, not screaming, just watching. Lena always woke up gasping, her skin cold with sweat. She told herself it was just a dream. But one morning, she found something that made her heart stop. A black veil, folded neatly on her pillow. Lena left the village that day. She couldn't stay. Something was following her. She went from town to town, city to city, trying to stay ahead of the darkness. But no matter where she went, she always felt watched. Mirrors flickered when she passed. Windows showed shadows that weren't hers. Whispers came from empty rooms. One night, she stayed in a small motel outside a forest. As she brushed her hair, she looked into the bathroom mirror and froze. Her reflection didn't move. It just stared. Then it smiled. A cold, crooked smile. Lena dropped the brush and stepped back. The lights flickered. And then, the reflection whispered, "You look beneath the veil," but she looked back. The mirror shattered. Lena screamed. She packed her things and ran into the forest. She didn't stop. Branches cut her skin. The night air froze her lungs. But she ran. until she reached a clearing. In the middle stood a small wooden door, standing by itself, with no walls around it. Just a doorframe. Carved into the top were the words, "Return." Her knees shook. She stepped forward. She knew what it meant. The city wasn't done with her. The curse wasn't finished. There was one last truth she hadn't faced. She opened the door, and the fog rushed in. The cold wrapped around her. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the silent city. But something was different. The buildings were taller. The shadows were deeper. And now, the city spoke. Voices whispered from every crack in the sidewalk. Faces formed in the windows. The streetlights blinked like eyes. And waiting at the end of the street, the veiled lady. Lena walked toward her. Not running. Not afraid. She understood now. This place wasn't a trap. It was a reflection. A mirror of the souls that entered it. Everyone brought their darkness. Their regrets. Their fears. And the city shaped itself around them. The lady lifted her veil. Lena didn't look away. This time, the face beneath the veil was calm. Sad. Not terrifying. Just tired. It was still Lena. But not broken. Not lost. Just honest. The lady reached out her hand. Lena took it. And the city began to fade. The streets, the buildings, the fog, all turned to light and vanished. Lena woke up in her own bed. The real one. The sun was rising outside. She ran to the window and looked out. No fog. No shadows. Just the world. Normal and alive. She checked her backpack. Empty. No journals. No veil. No cracked mirror. Just her. And one final whisper in the wind. "You faced yourself and found the way out."